Good morning, boys and girls. It's Little Red Riding Hood. And how are you today? Oh, I'm so glad everyone's doing so well. And I just wanted to thank you for joining me and supporting the library by viewing this video. Remember, your challenge this summer is not to have to read a lot of books, but to read as much as you can. So we've set the goal for 30 minutes a day. That's all it takes. You could do a lot of reading in one day, and that's your week. But anyways, I'm here to read to you James Patterson's Alley Cross. And we read chapters 16 and 17 yesterday, and we left where Allie was on the trail of finding his friend Gabe. Now his dad thinks Gabe might have done it and been part of the robberies, and more houses are getting broken into. And one of his friends is helping Cameron, and Cameron had to break up pretty much a fight yesterday because he almost got into a fight. Let's start with chapter 18. Chapter 18. Ruby was right about getting back to school. In fact, that Wednesday morning, everything kicked in way more than I'd ever been hoping. When I got to Washington Latin, I went to advisory like normal. But during morning announcements, they said there was going to be an all-school assembly just before first period. And it was all about Gabe's case. I seriously didn't see that coming. It was starting to sound like a lot of people had noticed what was going on after all. Once we were all packed into the auditorium, our principal, Mr. Garvin, put Gabe's missing flyer up on the big screen, 15 feet high, where nobody could miss it. Then he started talking about how Gabe had last been seen outside of Wash Latin and about what people could do to help. This is a chance for us to pull together as a school community for the greater good, Mr. Garvin told everyone. If you know anything about Gabe's disappearance, or even think you might know something, I want you to talk to an adult about it. I kept looking around the auditorium. There were about 350 kids in our school. Someone had to have seen something that day, didn't they? And even if not, I was glad people were paying attention. If prayer is your thing, then by all means pray for our brother Gabe, Mr. Garman went on. And if any of you need to speak with a counselor, Mrs. Noble and Mr. Villagrosa are here for you. Sounds like Gabe is one who needs the counselor, someone muttered a few rows behind me. And not just someone, Khalil Wayland. I'd recognize that voice anywhere. He and his idiot friends were being a bunch of dipsticks about the whole thing, as usual. I kept cool, though. Ruby was raising her hand to say something now, and I didn't want to take away from whatever she was about to do. Hey, everyone, Ruby said after Mr. G gave her the mic. Just so you know, we have a Facebook page set up for Gabe. If anyone has any questions or information, you can post them there. And we have a hashtag now too, which is hashtag Find Gabe Quells, all as one word. More like hashtag Where's the Body, Caleb said. And this time my mouth went off before I could stop. Shut up, Caleb, I said. I stood up and turned around to face him. You know so much about this. Why don't you tell us what happened? Huh? Go ahead, because I sure would like to know. That pretty much brought everything to a dead stop. Khalil just stared back at me like he was Mr. Innocent, and Mr. Rukowski started lecturing me about barring trouble at a time like this. I felt stupid for losing my cool, especially when I wanted everyone to listening to the assembly. So I just turned around and pretended Khalil didn't exist. He wasn't worth the trouble. I told myself I wasn't going to mess with him at all anymore, no matter what, and I didn't, for all of about 10 minutes. Chapter 19. I wasn't looking for trouble that morning. I really wasn't, but sometimes trouble comes looking for you. After the assembly, I was standing in the hall talking to some people about Gabe and minding my own business when I heard someone call out my name. Cross! Yo, Cross! When's your dad's trial? I looked over, and it was Khalil this time, but close enough. It was Darius Riggs. He was basically Khalil's lapdog. That is, if lapdogs were size 10 Jordans and extra large Wizards jerseys to school. In fact, I could see Khalil hanging back by the trophy case, grinning my way, like this was some kind of game for him. Meanwhile, Darius was still jabbering. You think that old guy your dad pushed down the steps is going to die? He asked. Because that's like a murder charge then, right? If this were a movie, I would have pulled out my secret X-Men powers just then and thrown Darius straight across the room with a flick of my mind. I wish. But I doubted Darius even knew what he was talking about anyway. He was just saying what Khalil told him to. Get a life, man, I said. And I went back to talking to the kids I'd already been talking to. But then Khalil decided to jump in on it, after all. That's what your pops is going to get after his trial, Khalil told me. Life, as in no parole. It was like someone had flipped a switch in my brain. I turned back around so fast, Darius actually flinched. But it wasn't the lapdog I was coming for. Nope, it was the fool behind him, holding the leash. I didn't have a plan. I didn't think about it at all. I just came straight at Khalil and popped him in the face with a hard right jab. And I guess those boxing lessons Dad liked to give me all the time must have paid off because blood shot out both sides of Khalil's nose, all down his front too. Now Khalil's shirt looked like a crime scene, and his eyes were bugged out open wide. I don't know which one of us was more surprised. All I know is that I didn't move fast enough when Khalil took the next swing. I didn't even know he was left-handed until his fist connected with my cheekbone under the right eye. I flew back. Next thing I knew, I was flat on the floor of the hallway. My head was swimming, everything was blurry, and I could hear people starting to yell, "Fight! Fight! Fight!" "Get him, Khalil! Stop it!" Khalil came for me again and pulled me up by the front of my shirt. I thought for sure he was going to knock me right out, but it didn't get that far. Mr. Garman was already in the mix, pulling Khalil off and getting me back on my feet. He was yelling louder than anyone else. Garman could go full-on drill sergeant when he wanted to. "Enough! What do you boys think you're doing?" he hollered. "He started it," I said. "Didn't look that way to me," Garman said. "If I'd started it, you wouldn't be standing," Khalil said. "I'm standing," I told him. "What are you going to do about it?" "Keep talking," he said, pointing a finger in my face. "This isn't over." Then I called him a whole bunch of names, the kind that you a detention for using one of them in school, but I couldn't help it. "Who do you think you are, Khalil?" I kept going. "You're a nobody, and you want to know why? Because you don't even try to pick on anyone your own size." Khalil was shouting back, but I wasn't hearing it. The words were pouring out of me just like the blood pouring out of his busted nose. And I would have said a whole lot more, and maybe worse too if Mr. Garman hadn't put a stop to it. "That's it," Garman shouted. "Both of you, not a word." He had me by the arm now, and Miss Noble was there too, keeping Khalil back. Khalil wasn't even trying to come for me anymore. He was just holding his sleeve up to his nose and killing me with his eyes instead. I think we both knew it was over. A second later, Garman started marching me off towards his office while Mrs. Noble took Khalil in some other direction. "I'm disappointed in you, Allie," Garman said. "Today of all days, when we just got done coming together for Gabe, and I'm surprised, too. I wouldn't have expected this from you." There was more, but I only kind of heard him. The right side of my face felt like it was on fire. And I didn't even need special powers to know that I had a black eye in my future. Not to mention everything else headed my way now. Because the fact was, I just bought myself a whole new mountain of trouble that I couldn't afford. Alex Cross. Alex knew there had been a fight, something between his son and another boy. He knew Allie was in one piece, but nobody had told him about the black eye. It was the first thing he noticed when he stepped into the main office at Washington Latin Middle School. There was Allie in the waiting chairs, looking miserable and already red around the eye socket. In time, it would turn purple and then yellow, Alex knew. He'd had his own share of perioptical hematomas. Still, nobody likes to see their own kid in pain. Alex's stomach clenched at the sight of it. "What happened?" he asked. "I didn't know he was left-handed," Allie said, like that was a question. After all those father and son boxing lessons in the basement, it seemed maybe Allie had learned a little too much about offensive and not enough about defense. Word was that he'd given the other kid a bloody nose. "Dr. Cross, good morning." Alex looked up to see the school principal, Jeff Garman, smiling politely and motioning him over. Garman crooked a finger at Allie to come as well. "Let's go, Allie. You too." Inside the principal's office, a few more things came clear. Garman reported that Allie had taken the first swing, and Allie didn't try to deny it. That part was even more surprising than the brawl itself. Allie had been in his share of scuffles before, but he had never been the one to pick on other kids, much less start a fight. Then again, Alex knew it hadn't exactly been smooth sailing for Allie lately. Between his friend's disappearance and his old man's upcoming trial, Allie was walking pressure cooker these days. And that stress had come out somewhere, but it didn't mean Alex could let him off the hook either. "You have anything to say for yourself?" he asked Allie. "Sorry," Allie mumbled it out with his eyes down. "I think we can do better than that," Alex said, and waited for Allie to look up. "I'm sorry, Mr. Garman," Allie tried again. "In any case," Garman continued, "we have a zero-tolerance policy on fighting at Wash Latin, and it comes with an automatic 4-day off-campus suspension." At that, Allie's jaw dropped. Suspension was a big leap from the occasional detention he'd received, and he glanced at Alex as if he were expecting dear old Dad to run some kind of interference on this, which wasn't going to happen. "I have no doubt Khalil was getting under your skin," Mr. Garman said, "but this kind of response is unacceptable. And you know that, Allie. You know it very well. I hope we can look forward to a more constructive attitude from you when you come back to school next Wednesday." "Yes, sir," Allie said, eyes down again. "Does that seem unfair to you?" Alex asked. Allie only shook his head, pressing his lips together like he was working overtime to keep these words inside. Clearly, he wasn't going to try and fight the suspension, but he was still plenty mad, which was fine. Allie didn't have to like his punishment. He just had to take it. Next version of Alex Cross. "What were you thinking?" Alex asked as they walked to the car. "For real, son, how did this happen?" "Kalila was talking about you," Allie said. Now that they were out of the office and on the street, he'd loosened up. Maybe it was something he didn't want to talk about in front of Mr. Garman. "You should have heard what he was saying." "Yeah, well, Khalil can take a number," Alex answered. "You know how many people are talking trash about me these days?" "I know, but..." "And you planning on throwing a punch at every single one of them?" Alex asked. Allie had no answer for that one, other than letting out a deep sigh. He really was carrying a heavy load these days. "I appreciate you having my back. I mean that," Alex went on, with a hand on his son's shoulder. "And if someone takes a swing at you, that's one thing. But I didn't teach you to box so you could go around starting fights and handing out bloody noses. Just because I hit him first doesn't mean I started it, Allie said then. He was the one coming at me with his talk about Gabe and about you, even though he should know better. His dad's a cop too, you know. Who's dad? Allie shrugged. Officer Whalen, I guess. He's a patrol officer in the 6th Ward. That name wasn't familiar to Alex, but it would be soon enough. He'd be giving Mr. Whalen a call that evening. In any case, you won't be going anywhere for the next 4 days, Alex said. No friends, no TV, and no PlayStation either. No PlayStation, Allie blurted out. That seemed to get the biggest rise of all. You heard me, Alex said. And if you can't get your head around that, then it tells me you're not taking this seriously enough. Should I go on? No, sir, Allie said. The kid was too smart to push it any further. In fact, there was no more conversation at all until they were in the car and halfway home. Once they passed through the busy intersection of Pennsylvania, 11th and East Streets, Allie spoke again. Dad? He asked. If Mr. Yang dies in the hospital, are you going to be charged with murder? His voice had gotten small. It was heartbreaking to hear. Allie was afraid, and for that matter, so was Alex. I hope not, he answered honestly. But how about we cross that bridge when we come to it? Yeah, okay, Allie said. And then, Dad? Yeah? Well, I know what you just said, but if Mr. Yang dies, does that mean you did kill him? Technically, anyway? Let me put it this way, Alex answered. I didn't push Mr. Yang down those stairs. I know you know that, but it's also true that there were no witnesses, and some people are going to believe what they want to believe regardless. Like Kalila, Allie mumbled. That's right, Alex said. Probably some other kids at your school too. There are plenty of great cops out there, but also some number of bad ones, and too many of them have been found innocent in court when they shouldn't have been. It can be confusing with all the coverage in the news. But you're one of the good ones, Allie said, right? I like to think so, Alex said. But listen, son, I don't want you worrying too much about this trial. We're going to work through it together. That's a promise. There was so much more Alex wanted to say. Allie really could have used some good news that morning. If not about the trial, then about the other 1,000-pound weight on his shoulders. The Gabe Quells case. But it was too early to let Allie know that his own theory about Gabe's involvement in the house robbery was still on the table. It was just an idea at this point. There was no sense getting Allie's hopes up too soon. It made more sense to wait until Detective Sutter from Youth Services got a chance to connect with Detective Olenek. Then maybe Alex could bring Allie into the loop a bit more. But not today. Not yet. For the time being, it was all just bad news on top of bad news. What a mess. And tomorrow we'll read chapter 20 and 21. I hope you're enjoying hearing the stories being read, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great day. Bye-bye for now.